So the second principle that I'm talking about is the professional relationship with students. This is described as an educator's responsibility includes nurturing and the intellectual, physical, emotional, social, and civic potential of all students and providing a safe environment free from harassment, intimidation, and criminal activity. An educator creates, supports, and maintains an appropriate learning environment for all students and fulfills the roles of trusted, confident mentor and advocate for students' rights while maintaining appropriate professional, emotional, and social boundaries. An educator must serve as and be aware of and report student behaviors that suggest abuse or neglect, whether it be in or out of school. Conduct that is unbecoming of the professional relationships with students includes, but is not limited to, committing any act of sexual abuse of a student or minor or engaging in inappropriate sexual conduct with a student or minor, committing an act of cruelty to children or an act of endangerment, for example, physical or psychological or emotional abuse. So soliciting, encouraging, engaging, or consuming an inappropriate relationship with any student, minor, or individual who was a student in the previous 12 months. So any person who is a student of yours in the last calendar year is still falls under these guidelines. Um, Engaging in grooming a student or minor. So that is like befriending and establishing an emotional connection with the student or minor. Um, or the student's family to lower the student's or minor's inhibitions for the purpose of inappropriate emotional, romantic, or sexual relationships. So that means that befriending the person, and so maybe they let their guard down, maybe they'd be unaware to the inappropriate actions that would be occurring. These actions also include disparaging a student on the basis of race or ethnicity, social economic status, gender, national origin, sexual orientation, political or religious affiliation, physical characteristics, academic or athletic performance, disability or English language proficiency. Using inappropriate language, gestures, or signs at any school-related activity. This could be include racial slurs or bias views, and this can be at any school activities. And probably just a good idea to just avoid any inappropriate language, gestures, or signs at any activity that you go to, not just school-related activities. Um, Provoking an altercation with or between students or engaging in a physical altercation with students that is not for the purpose of ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of students. So um, it's another incident if you're trained into how to intervene into a fight between two students to separate them. But if you're just fighting with a student or provoking an altercation, that would be conduct that is unbecoming to the professional relationships with the student. This also includes failing to provide appropriate supervision of students within the scope of the educator's official capacity, which risks the health, safety, and welfare of students or others in the school community. So, just not supervising the students in the classroom or in school at all. And lastly, knowingly contributing to or failing to intervene in the harassment, intimidating, or bullying of a student. So, if a student is being harassed by another teacher, a peer, whoever, or bullied, and you know about it and you fail to report or intervene it, that can definitely come back to you and is conduct that is unbecoming to professional relationships with students. So, disciplinary actions that would follow conduct that is unbecoming to professional relationships with students. If the educator violates the second principle, the first range of action is um, revocation or denial of a license for sexual or physical abuse. This could also result in a suspension 1 day up to 5 years of a license, or the denial of a license for the abuse, emotional abuse, or engaging or consummating in inappropriate written, verbal, psychological, emotional, or physical relationships with a student or minor. So any of the inappropriate relationships don't have to be just physical, but they could be emotional, psychological, or just verbal. So that could lead to the suspension of 1 day or up to 5 years, depending on the action of your license. And then the suspension of 1 day or of up to 5 years of license for disparagement, inappropriate language, physical altercations, or inappropriate supervision or harassment. So really, any of those actions that are unbecoming of the second principle could lead of the denial of license, so they could take your license away, or suspension that is can range from 1 day or 5 years, depending on the action.